Okay, so from that, we can tell that Regina George is apparently pretty evil based on what's been said. Someone called her evil takes a human form. She apparently punched that girl in the face, also. Everyone seems to be in awe of Regina, and Gretchen and Karen apparently do her bidding. But Regina's motivations are not really seen here, but apparently she likes being the center of attention. In that clip, we have multiple voices describing the plastics, but are they really the author telling us what to think about the plastics? Direct characterization. Or are they just characters reacting to the plastics? Indirect characterization. In The Breakfast Club, a lot of the movies about challenging the labels used to define the characters in the introduction. In Mean Girls, the labels used here are shown to be pretty accurate. Karen's pretty dumb. Now let's watch a scene where a character is introduced by an actual narrator telling us what to think about him. Direct characterization.
Now, this here story I'm about to unfold took place back in the early 90s, just about the time of our conflict with Saddam and the Iraqis. I only mention it because sometimes there's a man, I won't say a hero, because what's a hero? But sometimes there's a man, and I'm talking about the dude here. Sometimes there's a man, well, he's the man for his time and place. He fits right in there. And that's the dude in Los Angeles. And even if he's a lazy man, and the dude was most certainly that, quite possibly the laziest in Los Angeles County, which would place him high in the running for laziest worldwide. But sometimes there's a man. Sometimes there's a man. Wow. Lost my train of thought here. But, hell. I done introduced him enough.
With them all for collective action. This will not stand.
Now this here.
So in that one, we have direct and indirect characterization. We have our narrator say that the dude's lazy, and while he gives us that direct characterization, we get some indirect characterization that he is lazy. He's wearing a bathrobe, a white t-shirt, sandals, shorts, pretty sloppy and lazy. He's wearing sunglasses inside the store, and he writes a check for 67 cents to buy some creamer. I put this in purple because some of you may not know how checks work, but you try and conserve your checks. You don't use them for small amounts. 67 cents is a ridiculously small amount. He doesn't have a dollar to pay. He'll waste a check on the purchase, and he only gets the one item he needs when he goes to the grocery store. He's not shopping for the week. Through that, we learned the dude is lazy, and our narrator is reliable, even though he does lose his train of thought. So our only impression of the dude is he's apparently the man for his time and place. He does not seem to be doing anyone any harm in this clip, and his introduction for the narrator makes us feel like we should be pulling for him. We only see the dude buying some creamer here, but the cashier seems somewhat perplexed by him. He does not seem to care about what she thinks or anyone thinks based on his sloppy outfit, and as far as motivations, it seems like the dude just wants some fresh creamer in this scene. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about movies versus texts. The little moments in the movie and some good acting can help us see characters as more than good and evil, more than a plastic or a bum or a criminal. Those little moments are there on the screen for a reason. In text, those little moments are there as well. Look for the little reactions, the relationships, and the hints of a character's emotions. If the words are there, the author put them there for a reason. So we're going to read the following examples and consider what we see about the character from the words included. Consider if they come across as good or evil, what relationships we see, and what seems to motivate the character. Keep in mind that text often allows us to see Starm's T, the thoughts of a character. So here's a line from The Stranger by Albert Camus. Mama died today, or yesterday maybe, I don't know. I got a telegram from the home. Mother deceased, funeral tomorrow, faithfully yours. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe it was yesterday. So this is Merceau and the introduction to this character at the beginning of The Stranger. As far as good versus evil, we don't really have a lot to work on, but there's something really unsettling about him for sure. He focused on whether her death was today or yesterday, and his lack of being upset doesn't seem right when someone's mom dies. As far as relationships, his relationship with his mother does not seem too strong because he does not seem upset, but he calls her mama. That implies he still is childlike and close to her. Actually, the French word he uses is maman, which is kind of between mom and mommy, but mama kind of hits that for me. His motivation, he seems to want to know if she died today or yesterday, but he's not really too concerned. He's like, maybe, I don't know. Something a little unsettling about that character based on how he feels about his mother. It's a warning. And then this comes from The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, also the beginning of the novel. First Lieutenant Jimmy Cross carried letters from a girl named Martha, a junior at Mount Sebastian College in New Jersey. They were not love letters, but Lieutenant Cross was hoping, so he kept them folded in plastic at the bottom of his rucksack. That's a sweet one. As far as good versus evil, we don't really have a lot, but we see he wants love and cherishes his relationship enough to wrap Martha's letters in plastic to protect them. This comes across as good. We're pulling for him. As far as the relationship, his relationship with Martha is not what he wants it to be yet, but he's hopeful. And as what he's motivated by, he's hopeful to find love with Martha and his work to protect her letters from whatever he has to go through. All of this comes down to that very small detail that he wraps them in plastic, keeps them very safe, and whatever he's going through, those are important to him. So now I'm pulling for Jimmy. So why are we focusing so much on characterization? We've been talking about it for 50 minutes now. Characterization helps us relate to the story and pulls us in. If we find a character unsettling or evil, we usually root against them. When we see kindness in a character, we hope to see it rewarded. This is really going to have a huge impact on how we feel about a story. If you don't like a character, you're not going to get pulled in. We also do some characterization in comics, and here's an editorial cartoon from just last week. See how it makes its message by characterizing Facebook's F as evil and destructive? Its shadow kind of looks like Godzilla. That's some prior knowledge right there. Where we have this one. This utilizes some prior knowledge about zombies and some characterization to deliver a message about social media. All these people looking at their phones look like zombies, brainless, unliving. And then we have some photographs where we can also see some characterization. Even the composition of a photo can create characterization. Does the man in this photo look like someone we should want to succeed or fail? You can see he's going through those deep, deep water, but what has he got? A smile on his face. Here are two similar photos from after 9/11. Which character is more hopeful? The one on the left, standing amongst the rubble, or the one on the right, standing amongst the rubble? Now, based on the photographs, you can see the black and white image is a little bit darker, and he's looking down, while this guy is kind of rising up and looks maybe a little more powerful and ready to jump in, while this one is probably in mourning. So let's see what we've learned here. We're going to head to the Google form, link to the QR code on the right to answer some more characterization questions. There's also going to be some quick questions about sentences thrown in. Your responses should receive feedback pretty quickly afterwards. I hope it worked earlier. We're going to give this 4 minutes again, and you can follow the QR code, or once again, you can follow the bit.ly. This one is bit.ly/Cheeto Thumb. subtle. Alright, so now friends, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about settings. Now, we've already looked at these images where setting played a huge part in it. But when we analyze setting, what we're going to be considering is whether or not the setting is oppressive or empowering to the characters. In other words, does it weigh down on them or does it give them strength? And is the setting determined by nature or by humans? In other words, have humans affected what the setting is like, or is it natural and maybe in a higher power's hand? And then, of course, the character's responses to the settings will determine whether or not the setting is something we need to consider when we're looking at the thematic message. So in this one right here, the environment here, is it oppressive or empowering? Is it natural or human created? And how's the character responding to it? This one, obviously, it's very oppressive. The huge piles of debris. And we know it's human created, but the character's responding to it by walking upright, seeing what they can do to help. And here, once again, we have a person who is in oppressive floodwaters. They're up to the man's neck, but he lifts his weathered sewing machine above it and smiles as he walks toward higher ground. Whatever trial nature brings him, he remains hopeful and optimistic. And how about this one? Here we have some guys playing golf. How are these characters different from the previous characters? We had the fireman standing amongst the rubble. We had the man walking through the floodwaters, and here we have these guys, maybe not as noble playing golf as the mountain is burning in the background. So now back to setting, let's go back to Tommy Boy. Do you remember about Sandusky, Ohio, when Richard and Tommy drove through town? Let's take another look real quick.
Hey, what happened to the tire plant?
Shut it down last month. Hey, would you mind not eating in the car? It's kind of a rule.
Hey, the muffler plant's gone too.
Yep.
Really glad we got to cut off on him yelling there. So details we noticed, Sandusky's population is not that large, around 30,000. Has a nice town center with green lawns, but it also has a few areas where it's deserted with roads in kind of bad condition. And we see that the tire and muffler plants have shut down recently. So what do these details show? Smaller town, pleasant environment, but not all the town looks pleasant and businesses are struggling in the town. Guess what? That's going to be a big part of the story of this movie. Is it impressive or empowering? The town is home for Tommy and empowers him, but the closed businesses hint that trouble is coming. The environment is certainly human created in both the pleasant parts and the struggling parts, and the character's response, Tommy notices all of the businesses that have closed and seems concerned. So now let's take a look at another kind of movie with a very different kind of setting. The setting's a lot more important than this. Children of Men is a dystopia, which is an imagined society where there is much suffering and injustice. Watch how quickly the dystopia's differences from our world are presented.
The world was stunned today by the death of Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet. Baby Diego was stabbed outside a bar in Buenos Aires after refusing to sign an autograph.
Witnesses at the scene say that Diego spat in the face of a fan who asked for an autograph. He was killed in the ensuing brawl. The fan was later beaten to death by the angry crowd. Born in 2009, the son of Marcelo and Silvia Ricardo, a working-class couple from Mendoza, he struggled all his life with the celebrity status thrust upon him as the world's youngest person.
Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet, was 18 years, 4 months, 20 days, 16 hours, and 8 minutes old.
Oppressive or empowering in that setting? I say it's oppressive. No babies have apparently been born in 18 years. Technology seems to have gone backwards, and violence is everywhere. Diego was killed. There was the bomb blast just now. And while the violence is human created, the absence of any babies is not explained yet and may be natural, something beyond human control. Obviously, humans would like there to be more humans, so there must be something outside of their hands. Character response to this setting: the main character is not as upset as everyone else by the news about Diego, just wants some coffee to get some alcohol in it, and is surprised by the bomb blast. His characters and thoughts and just as characters' thoughts are helpful in text to see who a character is, how the writer introduces the setting is also vitally important in text. Is the setting going to create conflict or not? Let's take a look at some first lines from text that introduce the setting. This is from 1984 by George Orwell. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. So this is another oppressive environment. The winds are vile, there's gritty dust in the air, the clocks are striking 13, which we know is weird. It's bright and cold outside, and neither are pleasant. We can see that the brightness, coldness, and wind hint at being natural, but the dust and clock seem more human-created. And Winston's trying to quickly escape the setting. He's ducking his face into his chest, trying to avoid it. You can see that the setting is a problem. Here's one from The Sniper by Liam O'Flaherty, which some of you have recently read in your English class. The long June twilight faded into night. Dublin lay enveloped in darkness, but for the dim light of the moon that shone through fleecy clouds, casting a pale light as if approaching dawn over the streets and the dark waters of the Liffey. Around the beleaguered forecourts, the heavy guns roared. Here and there through the city, machine guns and rifles broke the silence of the night, spasmodically, like dogs barking on lone farms. Republicans and Free Staters were waging civil war. Notice how it starts so pleasant, but then quickly becomes oppressive. The pale light and approaching dawn seem nice, but then there's the sound of gunfire that takes over and establishes the civil war that will dominate the setting. Nature has been overpowered by humanity here, and war has ruined the setting. The character's response we don't see in this part, but you know how it goes because you just read The Sniper. So let's see what you learned in this section. Head to the Google form linked to the QR code on the right to answer some more quick questions, this time about settings. We also have some questions about commas. Your responses should receive feedback pretty quickly, like I've said before. You have the QR code, but you also can go to the bit.ly. This time it's bit.ly/talkiesburps.